Hi! I want to look at some spacing and timing today, which is a very important animation concept, and I just really like it, so we're gonna look at this clip from Overwatch Zero Hour and analyze a little bit of spacing and time. Right, I chose this clip because I love Tracer's moment here. It is super contrasty in the spacing, it is super well defined, and it's just really fun. So what happens is she's coming in and then coming to a stop. Really simple, but also a lot to look at. All right, let's look at the most interesting part, which is this landing. And if we look at this landing, it's just shoom. It's just really stopping and falling down. We got this huge motion, open up, and then we're falling down. And if we look at the poses quickly, we get this pose. Now we go into the next pose where we look at where we open up, and we get this big, really nice pose. And we come from a closed pose. We come from a pose that is like this, very closed, also very nice, and we open up into this pose. Then we hold this pose for a bit, and I'll get to that later again. Hold it, and now the character starts dropping down, and we're still holding the pose. It's still the same or a very similar pose. Good. Now let's start with the thing that we wanted to do some timesheets. And what we want to do first is I want to track her. I'm going to use this point above her belly button just because it has a really nice point on the shot that we can look at and just track. This is absolutely not perfect, but it will show us what we want to see. And now let's look at this. We have basically two motions. We have the motion into this pose, this, and then the motion down. And I love the contrast between the two of them. The one is basically linear. It's not, but it's mostly linear, stopping, slowing down, and then we get this really fast drop. So for the first part, I'm gonna grab this color and just look at this part. And we're here at 9275. 9275. This is our first frame. This is not the keyframe. I would guess that this is the keyframe and this is basically a breakdown, but we'll start there anyway. And our motion move until the drop is until 9283. So let's draw a line. 9283. This is around 283. How many frames is that? 8. It's 8 frames. And yeah, now let's find the center of that motion. And then we have 5 frames until the end, which is good because it gives us the center frame. And we'll find our center frame now. And our center is roughly here, which is, when we look at this, pretty much the center. So to get 5 frames, we have to put one here. This is our center, 280, and this is our end. But that basically means that we have to put 2 frames here and 3 here, which gives us a little bit of a closer spacing here. So this has to be further away. These two have to be farther away from each other than these two, which gives us, in essence, a slowdown. But this is not the interesting part. The interesting part is what happens next. How she drops down. And if we use this length and compare it to that length down is a bit more than double. So I'll just draw the same thing on top, but draw it a bit longer so we have double. So this will help us understand the difference between the two of them. So now let's see where we go there. And we also find the center again, find the center again. Center is around here. This is frame 9286. And let's say it slows out into a really small thing. So at the end of my main motion would be around here. So 89, and the rest is just a slow out. And that we can append again. It's basically a similar length than what we have above, and then we'll look at that later. So we get, and just say it's the same thing, 9283, 9286, 9, 2, 8, 9. And we have 3 frames in between here. 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 4. We get 4, 4, 5, 4, 5. This would be a rather linear spacing, but that's not what we have. We need to place 2 frames here and 2 frames here. So the first 2 are pretty close together. So we get something like this, and then get even closer if we look at it. So the first is, so this is the first, this is the first, this is the second. And then we get our main motion. Okay, so it's probably something like so. A slow out, then we get this huge motion. And then we have the second part of it where it slows down a little slower. So the hit in the into the floor isn't as hard. So I'd guess something like this. And after that, we get into the next part, and the slow down, it basically has the same. And this now holds 10 frames. So the center is 9, 9, 2, 9, 2, 9, 2, 8, 9. So put our key here, 9, 2, 8, 2, 9, 2, and then we have our end at the very end, 9, 2, 9, 9. And this means we have 3 frames here, and I guess they keep slowing down. Something like, well, we know that they are slowing down. Something like so. And now between those 2 we have to place 7 frames. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If they were linear, but they aren't linear. We are somewhere around here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which gives us a really slow slowdown. And you see we have 10 frames here in this part. And what we get when we look at all of that together is we get frames that are mid close together, then we get this huge jump, this jump, and then we get frames that are even closer together. And this gives us a really, really interesting contrast in the motion between where we contrast this length with this, and this just feels really nice. So if we look at it again, we come in, slow down, and then drop, and then catch it again. And this is basically the timing sheet for that. Now, why does this feel so good? Contrast. It's just contrast, and contrast is fun. And it's fun between colors if we have the blue and the orange, but it's also fun if we contrast slow with fast. Now, if we look at the poses, there's something interesting here. I mentioned this before. We go from here into this pose, and we hold this round pose for most of this time. So we enter this pose around here, slow into this pose. So we have this pose, and we still have it up until here. And she even starts to drop, and then we release the pose. So this posing basically follows the timing. It also extends it because she really tries to hold that pose, and she really tries to support our spacing with that pose. And when we move down, we get the same thing. We get, if we look at this hand, for example, we get the same thing just in a smaller body part, and the hand does the same. So it's slow and moves fast and then catches itself in a nice arc. So yeah, these are the timing sheets for this part. Now, a really quick thing that I want to talk about is when we have these big changes, we need reasons. Reasons are always energy. In this case, it is gravity. She's here, she's stopping, and the force that leads her to do this big motion, that leads us to speed up into these huge spacings, is gravity. And if we go into these huge spacings, we also have to go out of them, and that means we need to catch that force. And this is what she does in this really nice arc in the end, where we have this huge downforce here that's really fast, and she then catches it into a really nice arc. So yeah, that is this clip. I will see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.